Good evening. My name is Sandy Yu, and I am APAWLA 2021 President. On the behalf of APAWLA Board, I would like to welcome you to our first ever virtual installation event. For several years, many of you have joined us in celebrating our annual installation dinners at the Music Center, where we catch up with old friends, meet new ones, while celebrating the work of APAWLA and our honorees. Although we cannot be in person this year, I am humbled and honored to have you with us tonight, how we celebrate and recognize our three amazing honorees and their accomplishments. First, Bethzetic with our Community Partner Award. Second, Highland Chen with our President's Award. And last but not least, Judge Eric Hockey with our Public Service Award. As APAWLA look towards this coming year, we plan to continue the amazing work that APAWLA has been doing. And as I think about the amazing work that APAWLA has been doing, I would like to, at this time, give my sincere thank you to APAWLA outgoing President, Kella Mae Fan, for her tremendous leadership and positivity. We thrived under her presidency last year. I look forward to continue our virtual programming that will provide mentorship to young attorneys and law students through our ongoing mentorship program and our Trailblazer Speaker Series that will educate our community about their rights through our pro bono webinars and clinics, that will promote racial and gender equity through our newly formed Civic Engagement Committee, and that will continue to diversify the legal profession. I am excited to announce tonight that APAWLA has launched a scholarship fund, APAWLA Giving Circle, through the Asian Pacific Community Fund. APAWLA Giving Circle was established to support the next generation of attorney by awarding scholarships to law students. And if you'd like to give to the scholarship fund, we'll put a link in the chat that will go directly to the scholarship fund, or visit APAWLA website. As many of you know, I have been involved with APAWLA since my first year of law school. APAWLA is an organization that is near and dear to my heart because as a first generation attorney, I did not know many attorneys. APAWLA welcomed me with open arms and introduced me to many inspiring mentors who mentored me throughout my legal career. It is my goal this year that APAWLA continue to be that welcoming space to many young attorneys and law students so that we can continue our mission of empowering and advancing Asian Pacific American women in the legal profession. In closing, I want to thank you so much for attending tonight's first ever virtual installation event. We have a great program for you, so thank you.
Hi, I'm Amy Contreras-Camwa, APAWLA's President-elect, and we wanted to thank our gold sponsors, Munger, Choles & Olson, LLP, Sean Yu Group at Morgan Stanley Private Wealth Management, Sibley Austin, LLP, and Wilson Sonsini.
Hi, I'm Joyce Yu, and we would like to thank our silver sponsors, Katun Muchin Roseman LLP, Little Tokyo Service Center, Morgan Lewis, and Wen Lawyers ALC.
Hi, I'm Diane Tan. I'm Vice President Historian of APAWLA. We'd like to thank our community sponsors, Atkinson, Andelson, Loya, Rood, and Romo, and Sandy Yu.
Hi, I'm Katrina Rako. I'm the APAWLA Treasurer. We wanted to recognize our community leaders from APABA, BWL, Ayala, JABA, CABA, LLBA, MCBA, MABA, NAPABA, PABA, SABA, SCALA, and WALALA.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Callie Mae Pham, and I had the privilege of serving as APAWLA President for the 2020 year. Thank you so much for joining us this evening. Like everyone else, I had a different idea for how 2020 was supposed to go, When the first stay-at-home orders were issued last year, I remember going into a state of panic and denial, while APAWLA and our sister bar organizations rushed to reschedule our installation dinners. I remember commiserating with the other 2020 bar presidents that we would forever be known as the coronavirus presidents and that our terms would be reduced to that year coronavirus happened. Thankfully, due entirely to the spirit, resilience, and creativity of my APAWLA sisters, APAWLA went on to have a banner year where we served our community in new ways. Last summer, APAWLA partnered with Betsedic and organized a 6-week virtual employment rights clinic for Chinese-speaking workers throughout Los Angeles County. We had a free ethics MCLE that attendees said they actually enjoyed, and we held an ongoing resume review workshop to support our young lawyers and law students. Critically, we also challenged each other to look inwards and reckon with the roles we play in perpetuating systemic racism. In response to the killing of George Floyd and the protests that followed, our board held many discussions on racial justice to educate each other and to examine our own levels of awareness and complicity. We thought hard about what we could do to be anti-racist and strive for racial equality. We decided to advocate for the passage of Proposition 16 and the repeal of the ban on affirmative action. We formed a committee to focus on the passage of Prop 16 and held 2 events and disseminated information through social media to explain the history of affirmative action and why it's so critical. In the fall, we continued our mission to promote the inclusion, empowerment, and advancement of women in the legal profession by hosting a series of workshops on financial literacy. We assembled a panel of experts on how to ace a performance evaluation, and we launched our soon to become viral Trailblazer speaker series with a conversation with California Supreme Court Justice Tani Cantil-Sacauye, which you can watch after this on YouTube. Finally, we started a scholarship fund, and we hope to recognize law students who are involved in the community and to encourage them to become our future leaders. I want to sincerely thank my 2020 board for such an incredible year. I also want to give special thanks to our 2019 president, Lena Tang, for being a shadow president for many years now, and our incoming 2021 president, Sandy Yu, for already being better than me at everything.
I have the honor and privilege to award APAWLA Community Partner Award to Betsedic. Betsedic is a nonprofit in Los Angeles that provide legal assistance and education to over 90,000 individuals each year. In recent years, APAWLA has had the wonderful opportunity to work with this great organization. And together with Betsedic, APAWLA has helped to increase legal access and legal services to the Asian Pacific American community. For example, last year, with the support and help of Betsedic's Employment Rights Project team, we launched a weekly employment rights clinic for the Chinese-speaking community in the summer of 2020. And tonight, we are honored to have several Betsedic staff with us. We have Dana Hayda and Yvonne Madrana from Betsedic Employment Rights Clinic. And to accept APAWLA's Community Partner Award, we have Diego Cartagena, Betsedic's President and CEO. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Diego Cartagena, and on behalf of my colleagues at Betsedic Legal Services, I want to express our gratitude for honoring us with the 2021 Community Partner Award. But before I move forward with my comments, I want to take a moment to acknowledge and condemn the murder of the 6 Asian women, which occurred on Wednesday, March 17th, and the rise in anti-Asian rhetoric and action that we have seen over the course of the last year. A couple of Sundays ago, I woke up, as I do most Sundays, to hop onto my computer and start clicking through the Los Angeles Times, only to read about yet another incident of anti-Asian hate. When I got to the California section, I came across an article titled "Uber Bans Passenger After Racist Rant Against Driver is Reported at LAX." Many of you no doubt read this article, which described a man verbally attacking an Asian American Uber driver in response to being asked to please not sit in the passenger seat of the car. I was struck by 2 points as I read that article. First, the individual who recorded the incident, Stella Wang, said she went to the driver's defense because, quote, "That's what I'm supposed to do as a human being." Second was her realization that sadly, despite so many other witnesses there, no one else came to the driver's aid. Those 2 points struck me because it was such an important juxtaposition, that contrast between the individual and the community. In that particular instance, sadly, the community had failed to acknowledge and then address a clear wrong. Fortunately, there are other examples of where the community didn't fail, even within the pages of the Los Angeles Times. We have the example from Ladera Ranch, where neighbors are taking turns helping an Asian American family protect their home. I'm proud of the fact that this award reflects the building of community between Betzetic, APAWLA, and the Asian American community. We've been honored to work alongside APAWLA on various initiatives designed to support and uplift the community. In 2017, amid the anti-immigrant rhetoric fueled by the past administration, and the rhetoric turned into frightening action in the form of increased immigration rates, we partnered with APAWLA to help community members understand what steps they could take if they were worried that undocumented parents or caregivers of US citizen children might be removed from the US. We held the session just a few miles from where I am today in Alhambra at the Asian Youth Center. APAWLA volunteers helped translate the information we presented on what rights caregivers have. And then we sat down with Chinese American families and helped them prepare documents such as caregiver affidavits. Together, we helped worried families leave with a sense of peace and security. In 2019, we had the opportunity to partner again with APAWLA volunteers to provide a sense of peace to a different group of individuals. This time, the focus was on drafting advanced healthcare directives and statutory wills on behalf of seniors from the El Monte Senior Center. A week or so prior to the clinic, we trained APAWLA volunteers on how to complete these documents. We then gathered together on a Saturday at the Senior Center, and the APAWLA volunteers sat down with the seniors and drafted dozens of documents on their behalf. I'll never forget going from room to room and observing APAWLA volunteers meeting with seniors of Asian, Latino, white, and many other backgrounds. I'll also never forget it because I was introduced to the best Vietnamese sandwiches, which fortunately come from a little place not far away from my home. And finally, there was our collaboration with APAWLA volunteers this past year. As we all know, the COVID-19 health crisis triggered an economic crisis, with thousands of individuals losing their jobs. Sadly, many of those individuals found themselves unemployed and also having to struggle with an outdated and broken unemployment insurance system. Seeing the community need, Betzetic's employment rights program quickly became unemployment insurance experts and began offering assistance to community members struggling to file their applications. And we started helping individuals appeal denials of those applications. That's when Teresa Zen, Victoria Yi, Amy Yu, and Sandy Yu reached out to our team to discuss setting up a clinic to help Chinese-speaking community members facing these same issues. Our team jumped at the opportunity to help, and together with APAWLA, we mounted an incredibly ambitious volunteer effort. The team worked together to get our various educational and intake materials translated. They collaborated to help engage in an extensive outreach campaign that included community-based organizations and local Chinese media. And APAWLA recruited over 50 volunteers. Together, the Betzetic team and APAWLA volunteers helped answer community members' questions and help them start down the path of securing a modicum of economic stability in the midst of the chaos of the pandemic. It was the community coming together to support, protect, and elevate. For those of you familiar with BETSEDIC, these efforts to collaborate in support of the community alongside volunteers are nothing new. Over 47 years ago, our agency was founded by a group of volunteers who witnessed a community need and decided to act in support of that community. When it was founded, those volunteers committed to making sure that community was defined in the most broadest of terms. They committed from the agency's very first days to serving all members of the community, regardless of race, religion, ethnicity, gender, age, or immigration status. This commitment is part of BETSEDIC's DNA, and I think it is most beautifully realized in our commitment to undocumented immigrants. In Jewish religion and culture, there is the idea of being a stranger in a strange land. This idea ties back to the history of the Jewish people traveling from land to land, searching for a home, spending decades as immigrants. This experience has informed a commitment to never turning away any stranger, particularly a stranger in need. This ideal was made into practice when decades ago, BETSEDIC's board turned away federal funding that, while significant, would have prohibited the agency from serving undocumented immigrants. It was put into practice each of the times we partnered with APAWLA over the last 4 years. That partnership, I think, is also a reflection of our special responsibility in our communities. I've always thought to myself that my position as a lawyer is a very privileged one, a special position. As an immigrant, language has always been very important to me. As a law student, I realized that law school was a process of learning a special language that unlocked access to the courts and to justice. Armed with that privilege, I realized I had a special duty to use language in the service of others and went down the path of a public interest career. But as you all know, you don't have to be in the public interest sector to deploy your unique skills. In fact, we in the public interest sector depend on all of you in the private sector because you often have access to resources that we simply do not. When you partner with organizations like BETSEDIC and Asian Americans Advancing Justice, Inner City Law Center, Public Counsel, Neighborhood Legal Services, and Legal Aid Foundation of Los Angeles, you help us serve so many more than we otherwise could. And so I want to thank you. I want to thank you for volunteering to help those in need. I want to thank you for helping BETSEDIC realize the ideals it stands for. I want to thank you for providing us with the honor of serving the community in partnership and solidarity. Together, we will not only protect, but uplift our communities. Be well, everyone, and we look forward to the next opportunity to serve the community together. Thank you so much.
I have the great honor of introducing our 2021 President's Award recipient, Hylan Chen. Hylan is a litigation partner and is co-managing partner at the firm of Munger, Tolles, and Olson. She focuses her practice on complex business litigation, white-collar criminal defense, and government investigations. Hylan is also serving her second term on the California State Bar's Board of Trustees. We chose to honor Hylan with this award because, frankly, we have a crush on her. In addition to being a rock star, Hylan has been incredibly generous with her time as a mentor. Those who have had the chance to meet her and converse with her have shared how warm, genuine, and relatable she is. She is an inspiration to us in the way that she has managed her family life and professional life. And in her honesty about what that journey looks like, Hylan embodies all the values APAWLA strives for and seeks to encourage in others: integrity, excellence, and generosity of spirit. Thank you for being here with us tonight, Hylan.
Good evening. Thank you, Calumet, for the introduction. And thank you to APAWLA President Sandy Yu. Thank you to President-elect and my new law partner, Amy Contreras-Camua. And thank you to the officers and board of APAWLA. It is my honor to accept APAWLA's Presidential Award. I am so grateful and touched by this recognition. Thank you. More than that, I am grateful to be in this virtual space together with all of you at this particular moment in time. Grateful for the opportunity to reflect on the rise in racism and hate that people of Asian descent have experienced in recent months. Grateful for the opportunity to celebrate Asian Pacific American women lawyers and all that we have accomplished in spite of all the challenges we face. And grateful to look ahead together with all of you with courage and resolve toward a better future. We find ourselves at a remarkable moment in American history. I know many of us have felt grief and anger at the racist, misogynist killings in Atlanta. And we have had that grief and anger compounded by the racist, misogynistic way in which those killings were portrayed by many in law enforcement and the media. But in the midst of this grief and anger, I also feel hope. Because in this remarkable moment in American history, we see a growing awareness in non-Asian elected officials, a growing awareness in our non-Asian friends and colleagues of the challenges that Asian women have faced in America all along. It's like a veil has been lifted. And yes, this growing awareness came only after a global pandemic, a steep rise in anti-Asian hate crimes, the murders of Asian women, and the subsequent biased portrayal of these murders in the media. A portrayal that centered the experience and viewpoints of the white male killer, and that perpetuated the invisibility of the Asian women who were slain. Yes, it has come at a terrible cost. But in this moment, what was previously invisible has now become visible. What was previously invisible has now become visible. It's a remarkable moment. What's now visible is the erasure we Asian women experience. What's now been made apparent is the objectification we Asian women experience, the sexualization, the fetishization. What's happened has sparked a national conversation about the racism, both hidden and overt, that we have until now just quietly endured. And it's prompted many of our non-Asian friends and colleagues to ask, how can I be an ally? Now, being an ally is something that all of us who work to advance diversity and inclusion in the legal profession are used to talking about. But as an Asian woman, just the fact that people are asking that question, that is what's astonishing to me. The question posed to me, an Asian woman, how can I be an ally, is one that I never thought I would hear. Because in my experience, the baseline assumption in the legal profession has been that Asian women didn't need allies. After all, we are the model minority. We scored so well on tests. We did so well in school. Our success in school gave us proximity to whiteness. And that proximity to whiteness blinded many people to the challenges, to the bias, to the racism we face. I can't tell you the number of times I have been told by my colleagues, well, there aren't any women of color at the firm who do government and internal investigations. And when I respond, I'm standing right here, they would say, well, you know what I mean. And what they mean is they don't think of Asians as people of color. Asian Americans' perceived proximity to whiteness has blinded many people to the bias, the challenges, the racism we face. Asian Americans' perceived proximity to whiteness has blinded many people to the fact that the number of Asian Americans in positions of leadership in all areas of the legal profession, to say nothing of the number of Asian women, that number is still vanishingly small. There was a groundbreaking study led by Justice Goodwin Liu. It was published in 2018, called A Portrait of Asian Americans in the Law. It found that overall, while Asian Americans are in virtually every sector of the legal profession, representing about 5% of lawyers nationwide, Asian Americans are significantly underrepresented in the leadership ranks of law firms, government, and academia. For nearly 2 decades, Asian Americans have been the largest minority group in major law firms, but they have the highest attrition rates and the lowest ratio of partners to associates among all racial groups. While Asian lawyers make up 7% of the overall law firm population, they make up only 3% of all equity partners. The study found a similar lack of Asian Americans in leadership positions in the government and in corporate legal departments. And though the number of Asian Americans in the judiciary have increased in recent years, there are still so few that I know many of our APA women judges are still routinely mistaken for the court reporter or the interpreter when they're not literally sitting on the bench wearing their robes. The lack of Asian Americans in leadership has an effect on those of us who strive to be leaders. We lack visible examples of what we can achieve. Until I saw California Supreme Court Chief Justice Tani Kantil-Sakauye speak in public, I remember she gave the keynote speech at a gala for the Legal Aid Foundation of Los Angeles. Until I saw her spoke, I had never before seen an Asian American woman command a room of 400 people, most of whom were not Asian. Holding them in rapt attention while she spoke, with no notes, speaking with confidence and command of the law, speaking with such compelling force and inspiration. I didn't know it was possible. I had resigned myself to lacking confidence as a public speaker because I had never seen an Asian American woman command a room the way she did. I didn't know it was possible until I saw it. So the presence of all of us APA women in our profession, it's critical to the future of our legal profession. It's critical for the pipeline into the legal profession and for the advancement of APA women in our profession. You don't know something is possible until you see it done. There is another experience that sticks out in my mind. About 1.5 years ago, I was sitting in the gallery of a courtroom in the 9th Circuit Courthouse in San Francisco. I was waiting for my oral argument. It was in a Title IX case in which I'm representing the University of California. Sitting next to me was UC Berkeley's Deputy Campus Counsel, Therese Leone, a Black woman. We may have been the only 2 women of color sitting in that courtroom. As we were waiting, the back 3 rows of the gallery began to fill up with a procession of high school kids from a local public school. And if memory serves me right, it was a few dozen kids, every one of whom appeared to be a person of color. Their Black and brown and Asian faces filled the back 3 rows of the gallery. I tried to put myself in their shoes. To get to the courtroom, they had to walk through the giant imposing doors of this courthouse that is a National Historic Landmark. Walk past the marble staircase, take a gold elevator up to the 3rd floor, walk down a marble hallway with great vaulted ceilings on marble mosaic floors into a courtroom created in 1905 to showcase the importance and affluence of the United States as a world power. It was built in the style of an Italian Renaissance palazzo. And if any of you have seen Courtroom 1 in that courthouse, you know that that room is absolutely encrusted with ornamentation. Ornamentation ranging from carved fruit motifs, plaster cupids, Corinthian columns, more marble mosaics. In short, it is an impressive display of opulence and power. How incredibly intimidating and inaccessible it must have seemed to these school kids, many of them immigrants, or the children of immigrants, all of them people of color. How much must that space have communicated? This is not a space for you. The judges took the bench, 3 white men. Our argument was heard last. At all the arguments before ours, the attorneys who stood up to argue were also all white men. My client, Therese, whispered to me, "Think about how important it is for these kids to see you, a woman of color, arguing here in this courtroom." Now, I was so focused on preparing for my argument, it hadn't really struck me until then. But yes, how important to see a person of color taking up space with her voice, her ideas, her advocacy, and taking up space in particular in a space like that. Now, the lack of Asian Americans in leadership has an effect, not just on Asian Americans. It also has an effect on everyone around us. Without examples of Asian Americans in leadership, we fall back on stereotypes and biases. As the co-managing partner of an AMLA 200 firm, we have nearly 200 lawyers, just under 500 employees, offices in Los Angeles, San Francisco, and Washington, D.C. I often reflect on what leadership requires. What are the qualities we expect of a leader? We expect our leaders to be assertive, bold, creative, inspiring. We expect them to take up space. We expect them to feel entitled to take up space. Now, Justice Liu's study found that few Asian American lawyers reported being perceived as creative, assertive, extroverted, aggressive, loud. Instead, the study found that many respondents reported being perceived as hardworking, responsible, logical, careful, quiet, introverted, passive, and awkward. Traits associated with a hard worker, yes, but not traits associated with a leader. Because those around us don't see Asian Americans in positions of power, authority, leadership. They don't know it's possible. They assume we are a worker, not a leader. Without examples of Asian Americans in leadership, we fall back on stereotypes and biases. As the managing partner of a major American law firm, I get invited to managing partner roundtables and conferences. As you would expect, these meetings are made up almost entirely of men and almost entirely of white men. I have yet to meet another Asian woman head of her firm at these conferences, though there are a few now in the country. Kalpana Srinivasan at Sussman Godfrey, Faiza Saeed at Cravath, Cindy Chang, the LA managing partner for Duane Morris. At these conferences, people assume I've mistakenly entered the wrong Zoom meeting, that I'm a male managing partner's executive assistant. When we were there in person, people would assume I'm at the conference because I'm somebody's wife. Before the pandemic, I was at a conference that brought together the managing partners and general counsel of law firms around the country. One morning, there was a breakfast held in a ballroom where the programming for the managing partners would later take place. And this breakfast was open not just to the conference attendees, the managing partners, it was also open to their spouses and children, many of whom were there at this lovely resort. The room was full of men and women and children eating our omelets and our waffles. And at the end of breakfast, the wait staff cleared away the plates and food, and we moved into the conference programming. Everyone who was not a conference attendee, meaning not a managing partner, started to leave. It was striking. The room cleared out of women and children. The room cleared out of people of color. And we were left with a room of virtually all white men. Some of whom were looking at me like, all the wives are supposed to leave now. They were too polite to say that, but you could see them looking at me with a confused look on their face. But here's the thing. At every one of these conferences, after I've met the other attendees and brainstormed with them on tough issues and shared my thinking in discussion groups, I can see that they see me as worthy of a seat at the table. They overcome their initial biases and then see me as a leader. And in my taking up space as a leader, I have disrupted the biases of those around me. I can see it happen. I can literally see it happen in their eyes. And by taking up space as a leader, I am clearing an easier, hopefully less biased path for other Asian women in the pipeline behind me. So in this remarkable moment in American history, when so many of us are feeling grief, anger, despair in the wake of anti-Asian violence, I urge you to find hope. Find hope in the fact that what was previously invisible has now been made visible. Find hope in the fact that our non-Asian colleagues are asking us, how can I be an ally? Take courage from the ferocity and strength of the Asian mothers and grandmothers that raised us. As the Korean American author R.O. Kwon recently wrote in Vanity Fair, in which she called a letter to my fellow Asian women whose hearts are still breaking, she wrote this: "No one is more intimidating to me than ferocious Korean women. And it is part of my life's work to try to be more fully one of these women. The prospects improve with age, I think. Our mothers are alarming. Our grandmothers are terrifying." I love that quote. Do the hard work of taking up space in our legal profession. Taking up space with your voice, your ideas, your leadership. And I call it hard work because every time we take up space, it is an act of resistance. For me, I find inspiration in the example set by another woman of color, the 2018 candidate for governor of Georgia, Stacey Abrams. She ran against Brian Kemp, who was then the Georgia Secretary of State. In the 6 years leading up to that 2018 election, Kemp's office canceled nearly 1.5 million voter registrations, nearly half of those cancellations in 2017 alone. Election experts said this may represent the largest mass disenfranchisement in US history. Of course, the voters who were disenfranchised were overwhelmingly Black and low income. 1.5 million voter registrations canceled. Stacey Abrams lost that election by 50,000 votes. I try to imagine the grief, the rage, the profound sense of injustice and despair she must have felt. How heartbroken and angry she must have been. And she took this heartbreak and outrage and she organized for change. She built a voter protection team that got nearly 1 million new voter registrations in Georgia, resulting in Democratic wins in the presidential and Senate races in that state and changing the course of our nation's history. Stacey Abrams took her grief and her outrage. She seized a moment in history and she made lasting change. So to my Asian Pacific American women colleagues in the legal profession, in this remarkable moment in history, let's seize this moment. As lawyers, we are able to make a difference in the lives of our clients and in our community. Let's continue to take up space with our voice, our ideas, our advocacy, our leadership. And let's work with courage and resolve toward a better future. Thank you.
I have had the privilege of working with Hai-Lin Chen for almost 2 decades now. I've watched her mature from being a young lawyer to one of the best lawyers in the state of California. But beyond that, I've watched her as really a tremendous advocate and voice for so many issues that are important to women of color in our profession. During the time she has served as co-managing partner at our firm, she has cultivated those values, and she's been an advocate and a voice for diversity and inclusion at our law firm. Those values have been important to us since the firm was started in 1962, but she's just brought them to an even higher level. Hai-Lin, you are a gifted lawyer, a natural leader, and best of all, a wonderful friend and a good person. Congratulations on this well-deserved award.
Congratulations, Hai-Lin. No one could deserve this award more than you. Working together shoulder to shoulder with you these past few years as your co-managing partner of this great Munger, Tolles & Olson law firm has been the greatest professional reward of my life. You are tireless, principled, and always willing to work hard for what you believe in, including, of course, your strong commitment to promoting diversity, equity, and inclusion. You are the most formidable leader I know, despite the fact that you named your dog Petunia. I am most proud to call you my partner and friend. Congratulations again to you, and thank you to APAWLA for making such a wise choice and honoring Hai-Lin.
Hai-Lin, I know I only recently joined Munger, but I've admired you after hearing you speak first at LACPA's Diversity Conference, and more recently after hearing you speak at NAPABA's conference this past November. Hearing you speak about your career path towards your leadership role currently at Munger, but more importantly, hearing you speak about your experience as an APA woman attorney and working mother not only inspired me, but also has empowered me. So congratulations. We are admirers of your work to promote diversity, and we're inspired by your leadership, not just for APAWLA members, but the community at large. And I wanted you to know that I'm proud to not only be your partner, but to be at a firm where you are the co-managing partner.
Hai-Lin, we are so proud of you and so grateful APAWLA has recognized you with its President's Award. You have been a true inspiration for the women here at our firm.
And we have seen you in action, working shoulder to shoulder with us on the Women's Initiative and the firm's diversity and inclusion efforts. You live this and you breathe this.
So on behalf of all of us, your colleagues, your friends, your mentees,
congratulations, Hai-Lin.
The Honorable Akemi G. Arakaki is the supervising judge of the Dependency Court. She was appointed to the bench by the former Governor Arnold Schwarzenegger in 2010. Judge Arakaki received her Bachelor of Arts from Wellesley College in 1995. She went on to earn her Juris Doctor from Loyola Law School in 1998. In 1999, She joined the Los Angeles County Public Defender's Office as a deputy public defender. She remained with the public defender's office until her appointment to the bench in 2010. During her time on the bench, Judge Arakaki presided over the Lancaster Juvenile Court. Outside of the courtroom, Arakaki has a full plate of civic involvement. She was president of the Japanese American Bar Association, and she sits on the board of the Little Tokyo Service Center. It is APAWLA's great honor to present Judge Akemi Arakaki with our Public Service Award.
Mia, thank you very much. I actually received the award in the mail, and I do need to thank APAWLA for it. It's beautiful. And I'm very honored to receive this. I know that I was asked to just say a few words of thanks. I think that if I were to thank everyone I needed to be thankful for or to, we would be here for way too long. But I do need to just mention one really quick thing that I was thinking about as we've been prepping for this moment. We had been prepping actually for APAWLA's gala in person last year. And when I was thinking about my thank you remarks, it really just dawned on me how quickly in a year everyone's life can change. And it really was important for me just to say thank you to APAWLA for this great opportunity, because in all honesty, it was one of the last great things I got to tell my mom before she passed, because she did pass recently in 2020. And so for me, when I think about this opportunity and this award, I'm really very touched and moved to have said that it really probably was the last great accomplishment that my mom got to see me involved with. So I do need to really thank APAWLA for that. I guess it really does lead into just one comment that it really is about being of service. And that's why this was such a great honor for me, because I really do believe that's why we're here, to be of service, and to win this award as a ambassador of public service, I think is probably the greatest honor I could receive. So I do just want to say thank you to APAWLA for this opportunity. I know we're going to talk about my mentors and all of that stuff during our conversation, so I'll leave that portion for my thank you to all of those who have lifted me up, who have paved the way for me, and who have really given me this opportunity to go forward and to continue to strive for better for those that I can try to help and mentor for now. So with that, I'll just say thank you very, very much to APAWLA.
Question number one. This is the question where I asked you, why did you pursue a career in law? Because I've seen you play basketball. And you know, you were the fastest point guard I've ever seen in my life. And I know that you didn't go into basketball as a career, and it's hard with LeBron and all the other people out there. So, but their loss, our gain. Why did you choose law as a career?
In retrospect, and in all honesty, I fell into it, of course. No, I guess I think that being raised in a home of educators, meaning all of the women in my family, extended family, starting with my mother to all of my extended family, all of my aunts, cousins, you know, you name it, extended family were all in education in some form or fashion. And in that regard, really hit home the need to be part of a community, to be invested in the communities you work in, and to give back. And I really always envisioned either being an educator, a social worker, or a lawyer. And after seeing some great lawyers like yourself, as I was going through school, really recognizing that if I were to, in fact, go after a law degree, I could be, and this is really very true, a public defender who could represent kids, who could therefore then kind of be a little bit of all of those things. So really wanting to serve kids in some capacity and be able to argue with people, kind of, I guess, as well as really be of service. I really did go to law school in order to be a public defender to represent children. That's why I did it.
Well, I think that that's absolutely the highest calling for any lawyer, is to serve the poor, and an even higher calling probably to specialize on the children of the poor, and the lives that they have to live, and the futures that they could possibly have. So I think it's really appropriate that you're right there where you are. I can't imagine you ending up in a place where it was a better use of your talents and your vision for the world. But I got to ask you this question now here about what are the challenges that you saw, and how did you feel about them as you were overcoming them?
I think when we talk about challenges, it's always a complicated question, because we talk about barriers, we talk about obstacles and or problems. But I think that I've been so blessed. I've been such a lucky person that when we talk about any adversity or challenges, looking around the world and looking, outside, we really recognize that the challenges that some of us experience really, although at the moment or for ourselves, feel so great, but really recognizing that it's a drop in the bucket for somebody who really is experiencing struggle. So when it comes to challenges, I guess, yes, I didn't get hired in the public defender's office the first time I interviewed. Oh, that's terrible. But you know what? You wait, you go work for somebody else, and then you gain more experience. I can tell you what, great experiences I had because I didn't get hired the first time. But at that moment, it was this huge blow, your ego, everything, right? Oh my gosh, the world's coming to an end. I didn't get the job I wanted. Oh, well, right? I remember calling you and saying, I didn't get the job, right? But it really is. Then I went to go work for another great lawyer, Karen G, gave me my next job, right? And then another, judge that I'm working with now, Judge Benzinger, he was at the firm. But those are the relationships that you can gain if you just keep trucking. You just got to keep moving. And so when we talk about challenges, really, I can't really say that there have been huge challenges. You're
now supposed to ask you about mentors, and
I know you don't want to ask because you know that you're one of them. No, I think but I think being here at APAWLA, we're talking about that, right?
Yeah.
I think that we need to make sure that I didn't, when I first was thinking about who were my mentors, I didn't even think about my family or the women who were my role models and or real mentors, right? Those are the real mentors of your formative years, right? Those role models. My mother being one, which I took for granted for so long, not recognizing, right? All of the strong women in my life. One of my cousins before me that really paved the way for me. She went to Wellesley before I did. She went to Yale Law before I went to Loyola. And I really kind of tracked her life and would know in all of my being, I would not be here without her. You have those best friends that have those nights of crying on the phone with you, right? And getting you through your homework or whatever, right? Those mentors and or supports. But Mia knows for a fact that she was one of my first mentors, one of the first people that told me, don't you ever try to get on the bench, because then you're going to lose your voice and you won't be able to be one of our leaders. And I'm trying, right? I always try to remind her, told me that, because I always wonder if this was right, but I really do think I'm in the right spot now. The Yamakis of the world, really, but the bench officers who I got to see when I was a young lawyer, that really made me think that I could do this. The Sam Odas, the Christy Lou Stows, right? The Tammy Chung Roos of the world, right? And looking at it now, being able to see who my mentors were and the diversity of the bench and the people I wanted to be able to call my peers at that time. Really, looking at the bench now, I think that young people can see now that there's so much more opportunity, and being able to see that really anything is possible.
So yeah, we already started talking about it, but I got to ask you about the rewarding aspects of working in the dependency court, working in the juvenile court. And you might even expand about it, about just being on the bench and being in a position to make some decisions that make a difference, a beneficial difference in the lives of other people is a great opportunity, and it is a great honor by itself.
I am so lucky that I have this great opportunity. I get to sit as the supervising judge of the dependency court here in Los Angeles County. I also, though, get to sit in the dream court here at dependency court. The court that I have the honor of sitting in serves all of the trafficked youth in LA County on the dependency side.
Wow.
And so my caseload and the kids and families I serve are truly experiencing crisis, trauma, and things that most people cannot even fathom right here in LA County. And we always talk about, people talk about human trafficking all the time in this kind of global or international sense, or, there's some labor trafficking that we see here, but it's more of the sex trafficked children that I serve and their families. And so when we talk about reward for me, I have the benefit of being able to not only sit in a supervisory role and be able to serve all of the court, meaning getting to really help the judges and commissioners and staff that work in Edelman and McCorney, because I supervise also the Lancaster court. But I also have the benefit or have the joyous opportunity to work with kids who are experiencing true trauma and help them navigate that experience to try to get out of the life, to stabilize themselves, and to find their voice and be successful and be safe. And so it really is a humbling opportunity every day. But I actually get to wake up every morning and love the work that I do. And so it's tremendously rewarding to see children who are able to get out of the life, to get sober, to see parents get sober and get their children back, to be able to have children who were trafficked, have children and be able to live productive and safe lives and keep their children in their care. Those experiences, I think, are just tremendous. It is very hard work, though. Don't get me wrong.
No, I think it's the hardest work there is right there.
Yeah, right. And it's right at the surface. And it's really, we are truly dealing with tragedy some days, really. And so the team that I get to work with, though, in my courtroom are truly the best of the best. They're trauma informed. They are compassionate and passionate about the work we do and about serving the families of Los Angeles County. And it's really a great opportunity. So it really is, when we talk about what are the benefits, I can't even tell you. They're just too many to count with regard to those rewards. But also to being able to sit in a supervisory role to role model, I would like to believe, a community of caring, a community of respect, a court culture that embraces difference and embraces diversity and true acceptance of everyone's different ideas and thoughts and ways that we can attack problems or problem solve, really is also a rewarding experience to be able to train bench officers and to really try to mold newer bench officers' minds and open their minds to the fact that 2.5 kids and a picket fence is not what necessarily family is, because for some of us, family is 12 kids in a garage and on bunk beds, and that's family too, and that's a safe family sometimes, right? And
yeah,
it's kind of exciting in that regard.
Trafficking and the commodifying of women's lives and women's and girls, and it is a, what do you do about this? Well, as a supervisor in your court, I know you do something about it, and I just would like to know.
It really is about giving voice to our youth, role modeling that success is not always immediate and or eternal, right? We talk about people who are addicted to drugs, right? Oftentimes the addiction being a medical problem, right? And when you relapse, oh, you know, we used to think, oh, relapse, they chose to relapse, not recognizing that it is truly a medical issue, right? Or there's a problem. Recognizing that youth or girls or children or boys, whatever, you know, are youth who go back to the life, they're not necessarily making a conscious choice to do so. Recognizing that this is not an easy fix. These are not easily solvable problems. It's not take a child out of, you know, this life and, you know, put them in school and everything is fine. That is not realistic in any form or fashion. It really is about connections. It's about empowering our youth and our children to find their voice and to be able to advocate for themselves and to really provide services and supports for everyone to be able to navigate that piece. I know that there's all of the other greater parts of that question you want me to talk about, but I'm going to just focus on the core part of what can I do with regard to that. And the more we encourage our children to be successful, the more we advocate for education, and the more we advocate for ensuring that families can understand red flags about how to keep their kids safe from this type of behavior and or treachery, right? It is something that we can start to address.
But in any event, I wanted to ask you, and this is the most important question for the purpose of the folks who are going to be listening to us on this, is just broadly, what is the best advice that you have for law students and for lawyers and for women in the profession and in school and just the you know what I mean?
Couple of things. I think it's going to sound very cliche, but I really do believe it to my core. Being of service and recognizing that our role here, I really believe it, right? In life on this earth, the time we have here. And I talk to my fiance about this all the time because he's really the one who challenges me every day to kind of think about this. What is the best advice to give young people, right? To be of service and to be kind in providing that service is the change that we can make. Because I've really recognized that today, right, most people are like, I need to get mine. I need to get mine before you get yours, because if not, it might be gone. Is really kind of the scariest way we can approach any day, any task, any issue, right? And I think it's the most destructive. And I think that the best advice I can give is be kind in your approach, be of service, and then you can come to a solution that is not only positive and productive, but also inclusive of everyone's ideas. I know that sounds really ridiculous, but I really think these rose-colored glasses of mine are starting to really, you know, as I get older, have me evolve, right? I become this lifelong learner that really wants to understand how to be better every morning. Like every day, how can I do better, be better, and serve better? And I'm getting to a point where I'm so content with that, because I know that if I'm going to do that every day, then somebody else might be better off and pay it forward or whatever, right? And so I think that's really the best advice, because I will tell you, and Mia can tell you this too, most people that knew me back then would say, Cami, we thought you'd be in, you know, you were going to end up in jail. You're a judge now, right? No, but they'd also say, you're always real cool. You're very nice, right? I was never the smartest person. I was never the smartest guy in the room, whatever, right? But at the end of the day, I was kind. I was honest and fair, right? And I think that's how come I got through. And I think that, you know, me always tries to joke, I'm like this leader or whatever. No, I just worked. I did what I could. I did the right thing. I tried to make good decisions and role model good behavior and be kind to people. But it wasn't about wanting to like lead this charge. was wanting to make change for us to be better, right? And so I think that's what it is. It's about being kind, because at the end of the day, what could be bad with that, right? I guess that's the best advice I could give. And also too, because you never know who's going to be sitting at that, who is going to be the judge that's going to interview you for some externship or your next job, who's going to be the CEO of that company you're trying to get a job at, right? You'd be like, oh crap, that's the guy I stole that book from or whatever, right? Like you just never know. And so if you're kind, I don't think you don't run those risks as much, I guess.
Well, it's interesting because I'm with International Bridges to Justice, and I'm with all these clergy, right? So we suspend these retreats together, and we talk about, what's the most important spiritual value, and in those late night, midnight conversations with all these clerics from different denominations, we always agreed the same thing, that the highest spiritual value is in kindness, because kindness to others is never wasted. And it is the only spiritual force that will ever make things better. But the other part of it, when you're talking about service, I always hearken back to the Gandhi quote about, and this is probably for students, right? If you seek to find yourself, lose yourself in service to others. Mm-hmm. And I found the same key and the same ideal as you, in the sense that it's about that. And I think that especially with respect to a veteran in this profession, it is about empowering others. It is about mentoring, which to me is equivalent to empowering others. That I just want to say, though, that it's all been on you. All those lessons I think are really important for others to learn. I talk to young public defenders, as you know, I train them, and we always say the same thing, all of us. It's always just be there for each other and be kind. Mm-hmm. We're not asking anything else from you, but be a good human being. And that means you got to be kind, because it really, in many ways, I think it's not that important to be nice to somebody, but it's definitely important to be kind to them. Mm-hmm. We work in at least I do, in extraordinarily adversarial circumstances, and it has to be that kind of a fight. But ultimately, it is our human element that brings us through the day and exalts us. So I feel like, whatever dirty tricks get played on you and all that type of thing, we don't have to lash back like a jerk. And let me just say this: the courtroom demeanor and civility, absolutely. I thought that you really set a standard, and I think it's great, because now you have every right to expect that from the lawyers that come in front of you, because you know what they're capable of. So I pay tribute to you with respect to that. Do you have any parting words that you'd like to say to those of us in APAWLA land who are hanging on to your every word?
I think that we're closing. I did want to really, I didn't say it before, but I do need to really thank my partner. My fiance has really helped me to get to a place where I am so content with understanding that the journey is why we're here, right? It really is.
Yeah, it's true.
What we need to be focused on, because I know that we fail so much. We struggle so much. I know that we are all fighting such good fights every day. And I know we get beat a lot. So we need to continue to move forward together, to really focus on the positive and the beauty of all of us as a collective. And so I think that's the other thing about APAWLA I've really recognized about as an organization, yes, empowering women, API women, but also the understanding of APAWLA and APAWLA's leadership, that it's about all people, and really watching the manner in which APAWLA has evolved as well, to be so forward thinking and embracing visions of community, true community. Really inspires me. And so I'm really, really grateful for the organization, the work they're doing. I do need to say, we're all hopeful that we'll be able to get on a basketball court soon together. We'll be able to be in a courtroom together, and that someday, eventually, we'll all be able to be at a gala together soon. So with that, I think that's all I have.
Really appreciate it. Thank you so much for coming on camera. We know that we'd rather have you out decked out in a beautiful gown, coming and having a really delectable dinner over there at the Music Center, and that you've sacrificed all of that for us in this pandemic. So you're hanging in there. Have to say, the chambers look great.
I have to say I cleaned up, but we're good.
Thank you very much for joining us for our celebration of Judge Arakaki. Thank you very much. Stay safe.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Irene Yang. I'm a partner at Sidley Austin in the San Francisco office. It is hard to believe that it has been a little over a year since the world began sheltering in place and taking other precautionary measures in light of the pandemic. I would be remiss if I did not acknowledge the brutal reminders of racial injustice and systemic inequality recently demonstrated in our society. The tragic events that took place in Georgia and the many other acts of violence around the country against members of the Asian community remind us that we are no strangers to xenophobia, racism, and violence. And while we mourn for those we have lost, we also find hope in gatherings like this, where we see members of our community rise. These moments remind us that we have a voice and it will be heard. Sidley welcomes you to APAWLA's virtual installation. We congratulate the women and the work being recognized tonight. The firm is a longtime supporter of APAWLA and the work that this organization does in promoting inclusion, empowerment, and advancement of Asian Pacific American women in the legal profession. Sidley stands firmly with the Asian community, APAWLA, and others against anti-Asian violence. While there is much to be done, tonight we can celebrate knowing that our community is resilient and that we are not invisible. Thank you.